Have you ever wondered if a simple promise made without thinking could reshape the fate of an entire galaxy? What happens when an alien queen shows up with a powerful army demanding a promise fulfilled, one made 15 years ago? And can a man find the courage to give up everything for a vow he made to a little girl he once saved? This isn't just a story about love. It's a fight for survival across the stars. That sound? A strange melody drifted through the command deck like a whisper from the void. Captain Elias Ward froze mid-sentence during the weekly report. 5 notes hauntingly familiar cut through the silence. Every breath on Frontier 17 held still. Lieutenant Colonel Lin, the comms officer, had gone pale. "Captain, that signal it's from beyond Cartesian space." Elias's fingers reflexively traced the scar along his jawline. A souvenir from the Dyvanna operation. The one that officially never happened. The one that changed everything. "I know," he said, voice low. "Open a channel." "But sir, security protocols." "I said, open the damn channel, Colonel." The main screen flickered to life. It wasn't a diplomat. It wasn't a distress call from the Galactic Alliance. It was a perfect silver sphere slowly rotating against the backdrop of deep space. It glowed with a soft amber light. HFYLegendsOfZang. The time has come. The promise must be kept. The room fell dead silent. No one understood the message except Elias. The scar on his chin burned. It had been 15 years, Captain. Major Monroe glanced at him, nervous. "What language is that? What does it mean?" Elias didn't respond. He stepped forward and activated a secure channel. "This is Captain Elias Ward, Frontier 17, Earth Alliance message received. Silence, then 15 Earth years, 22. Dyvanna cycles, the promise remains." Elias went pale. "Sir, we should alert command," Lin said, hand hovering over the alert switch. "No," Elias said firmly, "not yet." And then the alarms blared, not from Lin automatic. "Massive object just entered sensor range." Sergeant Morris shouted, It's bigger than anything we've ever seen." The tactical screen lit up an enormous ship approaching the station, but it didn't match any known design. It looked like a flower blooming in space metallic petals, curling outward, refracting starlight into 1,000 colors. Raised defenses. "No," Elias roared. "Hold your fire, that's not a warship." "How do you know?" Monroe asked, eyes glued to the screen as the vessel drew closer, drifting more like a dancer than a machine. "Because that is a royal ship," Elias whispered. The alien craft halted just a few kilometers from the station. Up close, they could see the detailed, intricate patterns etched into its hull. Not weapons, symbols, stories carved into living metal. At the center, a massive bloom began to unfurl. "Captain, what is that?" Monroe whispered. "That's the Nixian bloom, the royal crest of Dyvanna. It only appears when Bauer." He didn't finish. From the heart of the metallic bloom, a beam of golden light burst forth, bathing the command deck in radiance. It didn't burn. It was stunned. Within that light, a figure. A woman, no, not a woman. A humanoid being with silver luminescent skin, deep violet eyes without pupils and hair. If it could be called that, woven strands of energy, dancing around an elegant face. Her attire was both battle armor and royal regalia. Black, silver, and violet, sharp yet graceful. "Captain Elias Ward," she said, her voice cold, commanding, and eerily familiar. "I have waited a very long time." Elias couldn't move. Not from the light, from the shock. "Calith," the name slipped out like a breath. Her violet eyes softened. A faint smile touched her lips. "You remember good." Everyone stared. Questions hung in the air. Fear, confusion. "I don't know how you found me," Elias said, regaining some composure. "But any diplomatic request must go through." "I'm not here for diplomacy, Elias Ward," she cut in. "I'm here for the promise." A stunned silence followed. The others exchanged bewildered glances. "We can't discuss this here," Elias said. "Correct." Calith nodded. "That's why I brought the fleet." Gasps rippled through the room. "Fleet, Dyvanna's 3 suns rise in 60 Earth minutes," she said. "I will await your arrival alone on the main deck." The hologram flickered, then vanished. The golden light faded. The room exhaled. "Captain, who is she? What promise?" Monroe demanded. Elias stared at the massive ship through the viewport. The bloom had closed. A smaller landing bay remained open, waiting. 15 years ago, Elias said, voice distant. During a covert rescue on Dyvanna, I found a girl lost, scared, wounded. He paused. I brought her to safety, and before I left, I made a promise. A silly promise to comfort a crying child. What did you promise her, sir? Lynn asked. Elias turned to face them, his jaw set. I promised that when she grew up, I'd come back for her. The room fell still, and now she's... What? Monroe asked. Look at the symbol on that ship. Elias said. That's the Nixian Bloom Royal Crest of Dyvanna. Their eyes widened. She's a queen, Morris stammered. Apparently, aye. Elias nodded. And the Queen of Dyvanna just asked for a private audience. He turned back to the viewport, brow furrowed. Prep the shuttle, he said to Lynn. I'm going to meet her. Sir, security protocols. What happens if I refuse? Elias cut her off, turning to Morris. Analyze that ship. Threat level. Morris read the data, face draining of color. God, it could wipe us out. Oh, follow-up, let's see, in under 5 seconds. At least 12 support ships are cloaked nearby. Before anyone could respond, the central screen blinked. New transmission, sir. Lynn said a message appeared. Not from the Dyvannan ship, from Earth Command. Urgent. Dyvanna has issued a formal warning to withdraw from the Galactic Alliance. If Queen Kalith's request is not met, all contact with Dyvannan representatives must be reported immediately. Silence. Withdraw from the Alliance, Monroe whispered. They're the balance if they leave. It's war? Elias finished, eyes locked on the message. Then he made his decision. Erase that message. Lynn, prep the shuttle. I'm going aboard alone. Sir, that's an order. Elias paused at the door. I might be walking into the arms of the most dangerous woman in the galaxy, or into the arms of someone who's waited a lifetime. Either way, I don't intend to disappoint her. 30 minutes later, Elias's shuttle approached the Dyvannan flagship. Up close, it dwarfed everything, a monument of tech in art. The ship's curves weren't just design, they were language, history, legacy. The bay doors opened. Elias took a deep breath and stepped out. The landing deck was not what he expected. Not cold steel, a garden with real trees, exotic flora. Floating orbs of soft light shimmered overhead like stars, and there she stood, Kalith. Not a hologram, real taller than he remembered, maybe taller than him. Silver skin glimmering, her violet eyes complex and endless. Elias Ward, she said. Not a greeting, a statement. Queen Kalith. He bowed respectfully. She moved toward him, every step a dance, her ceremonial armor catching light painting patterns on the floor. No queen here, she said gently. Only Kalith and Elias. She stopped just feet away. He saw the details. The pointed ears, faint scars on her neck and wrists, and her lips a soft lavender curve of mystery. 15 years, she said. How long is that to you, Captain Ward? Long, he replied. Half my career, a third of my life. For me, she tilted her head. It was 22 cycles, from frightened girl to ruler, from saved to savior. She circled him, not with menace, with curiosity. I never forgot your face, Elias Ward. The first image I saw each morning, the last before sleep. He didn't know how to respond. Kalith, that promise, it was just to comfort a scared child, she cut in softly. I know, I always knew. She stopped in front of him, eyes locked. But sometimes, Elias Ward, accidental promises become the most powerful prophecies. She raised a hand. The garden shimmered, replaced by a regal chamber. A black obsidian table. Elegant chairs. A diplomatic illusion. I'm not here only for the promise, Kalith said, gesturing to a seat. I'm here for the future of both our worlds. Elias sat stunned. Our worlds. Dyvanna and Earth, civilizations on the brink, but not in the way you think. She leaned in, voice sharper. Do you know why I became Queen Elias Ward? He shook his head. Because they needed someone unafraid of change, someone who'd seen another way, someone who was shown kindness by those we once called enemies. A holographic map flared between them. Planets, trade routes, factions. The Galactic Alliance is rotting from within, she said. Corruption, division, greed. It's only a matter of time. Elias had seen the signs, the classified reports, the silent panic. She was right. Dyvanna holds the balance. She continued, our tech, our fleets, our location, we decide the future. So why me, Elias asked. Why not a diplomat? Kalith stood faced a projected window of stars. Because I don't need a treaty, she said. I need a Bonnet symbol. Proof that peace isn't just possible, it's personal. She turned to him. I need you, Elias Ward, not as a pawn, as the man who gave me hope and made a promise. You need me to be what? She met his gaze. My consort, the royal consort of Dyvanna. Silence. That's impossible. Elias breathed. No. Caliph said softly, it's necessary. A marriage not ink on paper, flesh and blood. A bridge between our peoples. Elias stood shaken. There are protocols. The Alliance will approve, she said. If they know this is the only path to what? To prevent Dyvanna's exit, to stop the galaxy from tearing itself apart, to save billions. She wasn't threatening, she was telling the truth. So this is an ultimatum. No, she said, for the first time sadness flickered in her eyes. This is my choice. I waited 15 years, 22 cycles to see you again. That promise, it gave me strength to become what I had to be, to change my world. She stepped back. But I owe my people, if I must choose between peace and you, I choose them. Elias saw her now, not as an alien, not as a queen, but a woman who carried his promise like a torch. I need time, he said. I understand, she nodded, but not much. The Dyvannan Council is waiting. How much time? 3 solar cycles, 72 Earth hours. Elias nodded. I need to return to the station, to think, to prepare. I understand, her face unreadable. But know this, Elias Ward, I'm not asking out of duty. I'm asking because ever since I was a scared child in your arms, I've dreamed of this day. That hit him hard. I'll return, he said at last, the echo of his promise. I'll be waiting, she said, just 3 words, but they held a lifetime. As the garden returned and Elias walked back to his shuttle, he turned for one last look. Caliph stood still, watching, waiting, and as the shuttle pulled away, memories returned. Gunfire smoke, a trembling girl beneath rubble, violet eyes, a small, warm hand in his, and the promise, foolish, gentle. When you grow up, I'll come back for you. She remembered. She became a queen and now she came for him. Because sometimes a promise can shape the destiny of a galaxy. When Elias's shuttle touched down on Frontier 17's main deck, he wasn't surprised to find a full security detail and senior command waiting. Monroe looked pale, Lynn expressionless, and Admiral Reeves, the man Elias hadn't even known was aboard, stood with a gaze sharp enough to cut steel. Briefing room, now Reeves ordered, not waiting for pleasantries. 10 minutes later, Elias sat across from the high command, feeling more like a defendant in a court-martial than an officer in a debriefing. That was not a standard diplomatic encounter, Reeves snapped, slamming his hand on the table. For God's sake, Ward, she's Caliph, the Dyvannian queen. Intel has been tracking her for 5 years. I know who she is, Elias replied calmly. I met her before, right Operation Nightfall. Reeves dropped a classified file on the table stamped in red. Top secret. Funny how you left out a critical detail in your mission report. I'm not sure what you mean. Dyvannians never forget a promise, Ward. Never. Reeves locked eyes with him. And you made one to the daughter of the Grand Marshal. Elias's mind reeled. Daughter of the Grand Marshal. The girl you saved wasn't just a refugee. She was the last surviving princess of the Dyvannian royal line. Daughter of Grand Marshal Vexthor. Reeves flipped through the file. The same man your squad inadvertently eliminated during that operation. Elias felt the blood drain from his face. We were ordered to protect a diplomatic envoy. No one said they were royalty because it was a black op. No one was supposed to know, Reeves growled. Vexthor was en route to a secret peace negotiation. After his death, Dyvanna spiraled into civil war, and Caliph disappeared until she resurfaced, 10 years later on the throne. Back then, Elias was just 25, the youngest commander in Delta Wave Task Force. Operation Nightfall was supposed to be routine escort, a Dyvannian delegation through contested territory. No one knew it would spark events that would rewrite galactic history. That day, red dust from Dyvanna's dunes choked the sky. Gunfire erupted from all sides. Elias's unit was ambushed, not by local insurgents, but by elite forces wearing Alliance uniforms. Fall back, Elias shouted over comms, trying to regroup. Too late, the delegation had been slaughtered. Elias pulled survivors from the wreckage of their ship, and then he heard it. A tiny sob beneath twisted metal. He shoved the panel aside, and there she was, no more than 8 years old, Silver skin smeared with blood and sand, wide violet eyes wet with tears, a Dyvannian child trembling in the shadows clutching a strange plush toy like a six-legged earth cat with 3 pairs of ears. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered in Dyvannian. Elias understood he'd been trained in the language. "You're safe," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm a friend." She eyed him warily. "But humans killed my father." "I saw them. They wore uniforms like yours." A chill crawled up Elias's spine. Had this been a sabotage from within? An inside job to derail peace? "Not all of us are the same," he said, kneeling to her level. "I'm here to help, to get you somewhere safe." She clutched her toy tighter. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Calith," she whispered. "Of the Third Light Palace." He didn't know what that meant, but he nodded respectfully. "Beautiful name. I'm Elias. Elias Ward." Gunfire drew closer. Time was running out. "Calith, we need to go now. Do you trust me?" She stared at him, judging every word. Then silently she reached out her hand. Elias scooped her up and printed through the smoke and red sand toward the extraction ship. She trembled not from fear but from pain. She was wounded. At the rendezvous, Elias patched her leg with a med kit. She didn't cry, just watched him with wary eyes. "Elias Ward," she said softly. "I'll never forget your name, and I'll never forget yours, Calith." He replied with a quiet smile. "Where will I go now?" She asked, clutching the plush toy. "My father's dead. My palace is gone. I have no home." Elias swallowed hard. He had no answers. His job was to get survivors to the Dyvannian allies. After that, it wasn't up to him. "Your people will take care of you," he said. "They'll give you a new home." "Will I see you again?" she asked, eyes wide with hope. Hope Elias knew he shouldn't feed, but he couldn't crush it either. "Not with those eyes. When you grow up," Elias said gently. "I'll come back for you. That's a promise." Her face lit up. "You promise, I promise," he said, placing a hand over his heart and bowing the Dyvannian gesture of honor. And she mimicked epic him, then did something unexpected. She took a necklace from her neck and placed it in his palm. A tiny crystal shimmered with violet light. "This is a Dyvara, a soulstone. Every Dyvannian has one. I give it to you so you'll never forget your promise." Elias wanted to refuse it, clearly held cultural value. But her eyes were steady. This wasn't a gift, it was a covenant. "I'll keep it safe," he said, putting the necklace on and tucking it beneath his uniform. That was the last time he saw her. He handed Calith over to Dyvannian allies, returned to his team, finished the mission. 6 weeks later, he was back on Earth with a scar on his jaw. A classified report full of sanctioned omissions and a violet soulstone locked in a secure box. A promise made to soothe a terrified child. Nothing more until now. "She commands the largest fleet outside Cartesian space," Reeves said, snapping Elias back to the present. 5 of our planets are within range of Dyvanna's strike capability." "And what does she want from you, Ward?" Elias scanned the room, every eye locked on him. "She wants me to be her consort." "Royal consort," Monroe clarified. "She wants you to marry her, and she's issued an ultimatum." Reeves growled. "Either you accept or Dyvanna walks away from the alliance." "Correct." "It's not exactly an ultimatum," Elias argued. "It's a threat." Reeves slammed the table again. "If Dyvanna leaves, Helix and Orion sectors follow. The alliance collapses within a year. Then it's interstellar civil war." "I understand the stakes," Admiral Elias said firmly, "but I also know Calith, and I don't think this is political theater. There's something real here." "Real," Reeves scoffed. "She's Dyvannian Ward. They don't do real. They're cold, calculated. Emotions are tools." "I disagree," Elias said, thinking of her eyes, both the trembling child's and the resolute queen's. "I've seen something else." "So what now?" Monroe asked. "We've got 69 hours left to respond." Elias stood. "I need more information on Dyvanna, on what she's done since taking power. And on this bonding ritual, you're considering saying yes." Reeves gaped. "I'm considering every option," Elias said. For the sake of peace, Reeves eyed him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You'll have full access to Dyvanna and Calith intel. But remember, Ward, this isn't about you. It's about the fate of the entire alliance, I'm aware." Elias said, the weight settling squarely on his shoulders. As he left the room, his fingers unconsciously touched his chest, where for 15 years beneath his uniform, the Dyvara crystal had rested. He had kept that promise close. And now, maybe it was time to fulfill it. 48 hours later, Elias stood in his private quarters, staring at a holographic wall displaying everything he could gather on Dyvanna and its queen. In a decade under Calith's rule, Dyvanna had transformed from a militant empire into a power balanced by strength and peace. She dismantled the caste system, opened trade borders, and advanced defense tech beyond any known civilization. But what struck Elias most was how she handled her father's assassins. Not with blood, but with mercy instead of executing them. Standard at Dyvannian justice, she let them live under surveillance, learning from the very empire they tried to destroy. It's not weakness, her speech flashed on the screen. It's strength to be powerful enough to let your enemies see they were wrong. That didn't sound like old Dyvanna. It sounded human. A chime Monroe entered with a data pouch. I got info on the bonding ritual, she said, handing it over. Not pleasant, but not the worst thing I've seen. Elias activated it. A detailed hologram unfolded. 7 stages, starting with a ceremonial announcement, then a 14-day harmonization period. It ended with a spiritual link requiring both parties to share fragments of memory and emotion, using ancient Dyvannian tech. A mental bond, Elias frowned. Sounds invasive, Monroe offered. That's what Intel's worried about. She could pull secrets from your mind. Elias shook his head. My brain holds no secrets. They couldn't get another way. If this was about Intel, there are easier methods. So what do you think she really wants? Monroe asked, genuinely curious. I don't know. Elias admitted, glancing at the wall of data. Maybe exactly what she said. A union-proof our worlds cannot just coexist but connect. Or maybe she's obsessed, Monroe said softly. We don't know what losing her father did to her. No one does. Elias thought of the child with the toy, the woman with the storm in her eyes, the promise held for 15 years. How much time, he asked. 24 hours, Monroe replied. Elias looked around his office, his life for the past 4 years. If he said yes, it would all be gone, his career, his identity. But if he said no, if the alliance collapses, he said aloud, how many would die in the wars that follow? Billions, Monroe whispered. At least Elias stepped to the window. Outside, the Dyvannian ship hovered, still radiant. Sometimes I wonder, he said, if we fear Dyvannians because they're different or because they're too much like us, capable of love and destruction, power and peace. He turned to Monroe. I need to speak to her again before I decide. I'm not sure Admiral Reeves will. This isn't a request, Monroe, Elias said, voice resolute. Prep the shuttle. I'm going to see Queen Calith. And this time I'm asking the real questions, because if he was going to give up everything or gamble the fate of the galaxy, he had to know. Who was Calith, really a threat? Or a woman who believed in a promise and never let go? No, Dr. Valen can't be part of this trip, Elias said firmly, eyeing Admiral Reeves with disbelief. This meeting needs to be private. That's not your call, Ward, Reeves replied, sliding a dossier across the table. Dr. Naira Valen is our leading expert on Dyvannian language and culture. She understands the nuances of their rituals better than anyone. Elias opened the file, and there she was, Naira Valen. Dark hair neatly tied back, sharp gray eyes, and that familiar smirk that always hinted at something unsaid. It had been nearly 2 years since he last saw her. Not since. I don't think this is a good idea, Elias said, closing the file, voice carefully neutral. That's an order, Captain, Reeves emphasized. Dr. Valen will serve as observer and advisor. She's studied the Dyvannian bonding rites for years. She knows what you're walking into. Elias closed his eyes, counting silently before looking Reeves in the eye. Admiral Calith was very clear. I don't care what that alien queen wants. Reeves cut him off. This is basic security protocol. This isn't a game, Ward. If you're seriously considering Calith's offer, we need to understand exactly what that ritual entails. A knock at the door interrupted the argument, then a familiar voice. Apologies for the delay, Admiral. Soft but assertive, unchanged in 2 years. Ion storms in Sector 4 grounded my transport. Elias stood but didn't look at her. Dr. Valen. Reeves nodded. I was just briefing Captain Ward on your role. Elias, Naira stepped forward, standing across from him in her formal civilian uniform, navy with silver accents, dignified yet elegant. Good to see you again, Doctor. Elias nodded stiffly, still avoiding eye contact. Naira chuckled lightly, turning to Reeves. I see he's still as warm and fuzzy as ever. I'll leave you two to go over the details, Reeves said, standing. The ship departs in 1 hour. Trevelyan makes sure Captain Ward understands exactly what he's agreeing to. Once the door shut, silence filled the room. Elias walked to the window, gazing at the Dyvannian ship floating in the void, an alien masterpiece of elegance and engineering. So, Naira broke the silence. She's the mystery girl who's haunted you for 15 years. Elias turned slightly, brow furrowed. This is about diplomacy, Naira. Oh, of course, she said, lips curling into a teasing smile. Standard diplomatic business. Beautiful alien queen invites you to be her royal consort. Happens every day. This is about the stability of the alliance, and definitely not about the Dyvanna crystal you have kept in your drawer for 15 years. Elias's gaze sharpened. How do you know about the crystal? I'm a Dyvanna expert, remember? Naira stepped closer. I read your mission reports, the redacted ones and the real ones. I know you saved their last princess. I know you made a promise, and I know. She stopped just a few steps away. This isn't just politics. She chose you 15 years ago. You don't know Khalith, but I know Dyvannians, she countered. They don't give away a Dyvanna lightly. That crystal is a piece of their soul, a bond permanent, when one of them gives it away. What? Elias challenged. It's the deepest connection in their culture, Naira said, voice steadier. Elias, this isn't political theater. She meant it from the start. Elias closed his eyes, trying to wall off the emotion. The shuttle leaves in an hour. Tell me what I need to know. Naira nodded, shifting gears. The Dyvannian bonding ritual has 7 stages. The first 3 are ceremonial declaration of intent, exchange of sacred items, and the public vow. Public vow. Elias raised an eyebrow. The hardest part, Naira confirmed. You'll have to speak your true feelings in front of their royal council. They can sense deception if you lie, they'll know. And if I genuinely don't want this, then the ritual ends, Naira said. They won't force a bond. That's not their way. But the alliance will collapse. Maybe, maybe not. Khalith could be gambling her empire on this. Elias opened the data pouch on the table. What about the other 4 stages? Those are more personal, Naira said gently. The mental bond, cohabitation, biological harmonization, and finally, I get it, Elias interrupted. Naira stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. Elias, if you do this, there's no going back. A Dyvannian soul bond is forever. You won't be entirely yourself anymore. For the first time, he saw real worry in her eyes, not jealousy, fear. Do I have another choice? He asked quietly. Naira pulled back. We all have choices, but sometimes every path sucks in its own special way. The shuttle landed once more on the Dyvannian ship, but the garden was gone. In its place stood a majestic hall, columns of polished black stone stretching skyward. Suspended crystals cast shimmering patterns across the floor. Elias stepped out first, Naira behind him. He wore formal military dress, black with silver trim, the captain's insignia, gleaming. Naira wore an elegant civilian outfit, her hair pinned back neatly. Khalith waited at the far end, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a line of Dyvannians in ceremonial robes, the royal council. Elias assumed, unlike Khalith's silver skin and violet eyes, theirs were a pale blue with golden irises. Khalith's eyes locked on Elias, then shifted to Naira, a flicker of irritation crossing her face. I don't recall inviting anyone else, she said coolly. Queen Khalith, Elias bowed respectfully. This is Dr. Naira Valen, a Dyvanna cultural advisor. She's here to advise me on your traditions. How fascinating, Khalith said, gaze never leaving Naira. A human who believes she understands our ways. I wonder where she studied. Books, research, interviews. Naira answered smoothly. And a deep admiration for your civilization. Admiration, Khalith echoed the word, tasting it, a concept we Dyvannians know intimately. Her eyes shifted to Elias. Don't we, Captain Ward? Before he could answer, a tall council member stepped forward. The rights permit no outsiders. She's not an outsider, Elias said. She represents the alliance like me. No, the elder replied. You are the chosen, she is not. Khalith raised a hand, silencing them. If Captain Ward desires her presence, she may observe for the initial stages, but she may not interfere. Elias nodded gratefully. Naira stepped aside, positioning herself at a respectful distance. Step 1, the declaration of intent. Khalith said, approaching him. I, Khalith of the Third Light, Queen of Dyvanna, declare my intent to bond with Elias Ward of Earth. With all that I am, all that I have, and all I will become. Elias swallowed, recalling Nyra's guidance. I, Elias Ward of Earth, hear Queen Calith's declaration and receive it with respect and careful consideration. Calith's eyes glinted. She knew that wasn't a full acceptance. Step 2, the exchange of sacred items. She held out her hand. A council member placed a small crystal in her palm, a violet Dyvanna, nearly identical to the one Elias had kept for years. This is my Dyvanna, Calith said, voice low, my soul stone. It holds my essence. I offer it as a symbol of complete trust. From her corner, Nyra gasped. This wasn't ceremony, this was real. Elias felt the weight of the moment. Tradition required him to offer something in return, but humans had no soul stones. And then he knew. He reached beneath his collar, drawing out the necklace he'd worn for 15 years. The same Dyvanna Calith had given him as a child. I've kept this, Elias said, voice catching. All this time, I never took it off. A stir moved through the council. Calith froze, violet eyes wide. You kept it all this time. I made a promise, Elias said simply, and I kept it. A glimmering drop, like a violet tear, slipped down her cheek. No one, she whispered, voice trembling. No one outside Dyvanna has ever worn one for that long. How did you know to keep it near your heart? I didn't, Elias admitted. It just felt right. Calith stepped closer, touching the crystal in his hand. As her fingers met it, both Dyvanna, hers, and his lit up, pulsing with radiant purple light. They recognized each other. She breathed, awestruck. Two halves of the same soul. From the side, Nyra felt a sharp ache in her chest. This connection, this unspoken bond was something she and Elias had never shared. Step 3, Calith said, lifting her gaze to meet his. The public vow, the council stepped in, forming a circle around them. Captain Elias Ward of Earth, the elder intoned, speak your truth, your feelings for our queen, your intent to join with her, past, present, and future. Speak the truth, Elias, Calith whispered. Only the truth can move us forward. Elias looked into her eyes, then glanced toward Nyra, her eyes full of worry. He stood between worlds, past and future, duty and emotion, everything he was and everything he might become. 15 years ago, he began softly. I found a frightened girl in the wreckage. I gave her a promise I thought I'd never be asked to keep, but I kept her crystal near my heart, a reminder of something pure in a galaxy full of conflict. He paused. I didn't know who she'd become. I didn't know what kind of woman she'd grow into, but I know that anyone who could turn a simple promise into the will to change an entire world deserves my deepest admiration and respect. The council remained still. Calith's eyes didn't blink. I'm afraid, Elias continued, surprising himself with the honesty, afraid I'm not enough, afraid I'll fail her, afraid to give up everything I know. Nyra looked down, understanding, this wasn't politics. This was a man grappling with something real. But I also believe, Elias said, voice strengthening, that the greatest things come from unexpected places, from chance encounters, from promises. Whispered in war zones, from looking into the eyes of someone completely different and feeling like you've known them forever. He locked eyes with Calith and the world around them faded. Queen Calith, he said clearly, I can't say I've loved you for 15 years, but I can say I've never forgotten you, that you've always somehow been a part of me. Nyra turned away. It felt too private to witness, but the words still rang in her ears. Words Elias had never said to her, even after 3 years together. If this is the path to peace between our worlds, Elias finished, then maybe it's not a sacrifice, maybe it's the end of a journey that began long ago. Silence fell. Then Calith stepped forward, placing a hand on his chest where the Dyvanna had rested for 15 years. You spoke the truth, she whispered, eyes glowing. And I meant it when I said I've dreamed of this moment every night since the day you saved me. From her corner, Nyra looked away again, feeling like she'd just witnessed the moment a man's heart finally left the world he knew. And maybe it had never truly belonged here at all. After the vow, the atmosphere in the grand hall shifted. The Dyvannian council exchanged glances, then silently withdrew, leaving Calith, Elias, and Nyra alone in the vast chamber. The first 3 stages are complete, Calith said softly, her voice more relaxed without the council present. We can pause before continuing. I think I should return to report to Admiral Reeves, Naira said, feeling increasingly like an intruder in this moment. If the next steps are more personal, Caliph looked at her with an unreadable expression. Indeed, Dr. Valen. The next stages are not meant for spectators. Elias felt the tension rising between the two women, but before he could say anything, Caliph continued. But before you leave, perhaps you'd like to know the real reason I'm here. She turned to Elias. Would you like to hear what I truly need? Elias narrowed his eyes. I thought that was already clear. Only part of it, Caliph said, shaking her head slightly, sending waves through her energy-woven hair. Come with me. She led them through a hidden doorway into a smaller chamber. A detailed holographic map of the galaxy hovered in the air. Planets, space stations, and political borders glowing with precision. I don't want war, Caliph began, her voice steady. I never did. On the contrary, I want a stronger alliance, one that can survive what's coming. What exactly was coming? Naira asked, her academic curiosity overpowering her personal feelings. Caliph waved her hand, zooming the map in on a remote region at the galaxy's outer rim. They're coming, she said simply, from beyond, from the dark edge. Who? Elias asked, a chill running down his spine. They call themselves the Void Harbingers. Caliph answered. Dyvanna is the only known civilization to encounter them and survive. She enlarged a portion of the map, showing footage of a Dyvannian scout ship confronting an anomalous object, a pitch-black mass with no defined shape absorbing all surrounding light. 3 years ago, they destroyed one of our farthest outposts. No warning, no demands, just annihilation. Elias studied the image with a strategist's eye. Why weren't we informed of this threat? Because the alliance is breaking from within. Caliph said, you don't trust each other anymore. Each planet, each race is chasing its own interest. News of an external threat would only accelerate the collapse. The weak would surrender, the strong would entrench. But you can't keep this hidden forever, Naira said. Humanity deserves to know. That's why I'm here. Caliph turned to Elias. I need someone brave enough to unify our worlds, not just for peace between Earth and Dyvanna, but to prepare for a war unlike any we've faced. Elias felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. This was bigger than politics, bigger than romance. This was about the survival of everything they knew. I need to speak with my superiors, he said. They have to be informed. Be careful, Elias, Caliph warned. Not everyone in your alliance shares your goals. There are factions that believe humanity should stand alone. Do you have proof of these extremists? Naira asked, clearly skeptical. More than you think, Dr. Valen, Caliph replied. Since I announced my intent to bond with Captain Ward, there have been 3 assassination attempts, all traced back to human extremist cells. Elias stiffened. Why wasn't I told about this? Because we didn't want to cause panic, said a new voice at the door. They turned to see Admiral Reeves entering, flanked by 2 armed officers. Admiral, Elias said, stunned, what are you doing here? Monitoring the situation, Reeves said calmly. This is now a top-level security matter. Ward, did you think we'd leave you unaccompanied? Caliph's eyes narrowed. I don't recall inviting you aboard my ship. We received a priority alert from Dr. Valen, Reeves said, casting a glance at Naira. Elias turned toward her, eyes filled with disbelief. You reported this. I had to, Elias, Naira replied, not meeting his gaze. It's protocol. Enough, Reeves cut in. Queen Caliph Yarwar claims of an external threat are serious and must be investigated. In the meantime, we need to ensure that Captain Ward is not compromised. Elias stepped forward. I'm perfectly lucid and capable of making decisions. Perhaps, Reeves said, or perhaps you've been influenced by Dyvannian tech. We don't fully understand. Dr. Valen has flagged your impending mental bond as a major concern. We haven't completed that step, Elias objected. I'm still myself. I knew this would happen, Caliph said coldly. Humans always fear what they don't understand. Not fear, Your Majesty, Reeves responded. Caution, Captain Ward will return to Frontier 17 for medical and psychological evaluation. Then we'll revisit your intriguing proposal. This isn't a proposal, Admiral, Caliph said firmly. It's the only path to save both our civilizations. Reeves smirked. You've convinced Captain Ward, impressive. But the alliance doesn't hinge on one man. Tension crackled in the room. Elias felt trapped, caught between opposing forces, unsure who to trust. A sudden beep sounded from a control panel near the door. Kaleth rushed over. "What is it?" Elias asked. "Security breach," she said, fingers flying across the interface. "Someone's trying to override." She didn't finish. An explosion rocked the chamber. Alarms blared. "We're under attack," Kaleth shouted. The doors burst open. Dyvannian guards stormed in. "Your Majesty, we must get you to safety now." "Who?" Kaleth demanded, already armed with a glowing weapon. "Who's attacking?" "A human strike team," the commander reported. "They bypassed systems using a clone ID matching Captain Ward." All eyes turned to Elias. He shook his head. "That's not me. I had no knowledge of this." "Did you not?" Reeves asked, his tone shifting. "Then how did they get your ID?" Before Elias could answer, gunfire erupted outside, closer. Now louder. "They're here," the Dyvannian shouted. "Protect the Queen." Kaleth didn't wait. She charged toward the door. "I don't run from enemies." "Kaleth, no," Elias shouted, diving toward her. At that moment, a sphere of energy flew into the room. Not a standard laser, but an EMP grenade designed specifically to disable Dyvannian tech. Without hesitation, Elias threw himself in front of her. Pain lanced through him like 1,000 needles, piercing every nerve. Kaleth screamed, but her voice sounded distant, muffled. The world twisted and then faded to black. Elias woke in an unfamiliar place, not on the Dyvannian ship, not on Frontier 17. A small, sterile room, no windows, a cell. His body ached, residual damage from the EMP. But worse was the emptiness inside. He reached for his chest. His Devar was gone. The door slid open. Reeves entered, 2 guards behind him. "Awake at last," he said coolly. "We need to talk." "Where's Kaleth?" Elias rasped. "Is she hurt?" "The Dyvannian Queen is safe," Reeves replied. "She returned home after threatening to level 3 of our colonies if you were harmed." "What did you do?" Elias forced himself upright. "Who attacked her ship?" "An extremist group," Reeves admitted. "They believe any alliance with aliens is treason." "And you knew?" "We suspected," Reeves nodded. "But not in time. Why am I here? I'm the victim, not the enemy." "That depends on perspective." Reeves sat across from him. "You bonded with an alien queen, declared it before their council, and then conveniently you threw yourself in harm's way to save her. Any soldier would have done the same. Would they? Or was it love, Captain?" Elias said nothing, because honestly, he didn't know anymore. "That's not what matters right now," he said eventually. "What matters is the threat Kaleth warned us about, the Void Harbingers." "Ah, yes," Reeves nodded. "The mysterious galactic menace. How convenient a common enemy to unite us under Dyvanna's leadership." "You think she's lying?" "I think it's classic strategy. Fabricate a shared threat to consolidate power." "Did she show you hard proof?" "Anything more than a fancy hologram?" Elias hesitated. "No, just what she'd shown him." But then he remembered her eyes, the fear in them. It wasn't political. "She's not lying," he said. "I believe her. Because you love her, or because you have evidence." Before Elias could respond, the door opened again. Naira stepped in, visibly shaken, dried blood on her uniform and a small cut on her cheek. "Dr. Valen." Reeves nodded. "Perfect timing. Perhaps you can help the captain understand his situation." "I need a moment alone with him," Naira said firmly. Reeves paused, then nodded. 5 minutes. He exited with the guards. Once the door shut, Naira rushed to Elias. "Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine," he said. "Is Kaleth?" "She's safe, but she's broken, Elias, not physically, emotionally." "She thinks I betrayed her." "No, she knows it wasn't you. But when you fell, she thought you were dead. I've never seen pain like that. It wasn't politics, it was real." Elias closed his eyes, heart aching. "After you, Anan," Naira continued, "she fought like a storm, not for revenge for you." She took a breath. "When the guards pulled you away, I thought she'd order us all dead. But instead, she knelt beside you and whispered something in ancient Dyvannian. I only caught fragments." "What did she say?" "She said, I spent my whole life becoming worthy of you. From the moment you looked into my eyes and saw me not fear." Naira looked away. "She loves you, Elias, not for power, but because you gave her hope when she had none." Something cracked inside Elias. 15 years. She'd carried the image of him for 15 years, built an empire around a promise he never meant to keep, not out of delusion but out of faith. I need to see her, he said, struggling to rise. I have to talk to her. You can't. Naira shook her head. She's gone, and Reeves won't let you out. Then help me, Elias said, meeting her eyes. Not for me, for peace, for the truth. The Void Harbingers are real, I feel it. Naira studied him silent, then sighed. I'll help you, she said finally. Not because I trust her, but because I trust you, and because, her voice faltered, eyes pained. Because I saw how you looked at her. The way you never looked at me. Before Elias could respond, the door opened. Time's up, Reeves said. Dr. Vallon, your report. Captain Ward is stable, Naira answered. But I recommend medical observation. The Dyvannian EMP may have caused unknown complications. Is that necessary? I'm the Dyvanna specialist, Admiral. That's my recommendation. Reeves considered, then nodded, fine, but under guard. Of course, Naira said, safety first. As they left the cell, Elias held on to one fragile hope, but it was drowned by one heavy truth. A Dyvannian queen hurt, heartbroken, and powerful enough to level worlds was out there. And the reunion she dreamed of her whole life might never come. When Elias heard medical station, he didn't expect it to mean escape route. Yet here he was following Naira down a little-used corridor, door of Frontier 17, an area he hadn't even known existed. 2 guards trailed behind them, supposedly escorting Elias for examination. Then without warning, Naira stopped, pulled a small device from her coat and pressed it. The guards collapsed instantly. Low-frequency EMP, she explained at Elias's shocked expression. Just enough to disable their augmented suits. They'll wake up in 15... Naira, this is insane, Elias hissed, scanning the empty away. You know what will happen to you if we get caught? I know exactly what's at stake, she snapped, dragging him into a nearby room and locking the door. Another device came out of her coat, this one a scrambler. Start talking, Elias demanded. Naira pulled a small data core from her pocket. While everyone was panicking after the attack, I hacked Reeves's private comms. Elias, he was in contact with the strike team before they boarded Calith's ship. Reeves, Elias's stomach sank. He orchestrated the attack. He's part of Terra Primacy, she said, her voice shaking with fury. They believe humanity should dominate the galaxy, no alliances, no compromises. Peace with Dyvanna doesn't fit their vision. Elias processed the revelation, the weight of it settling on his chest. What does this have to do with Void Harbingers? Everything. Naira said, sliding the data core into a console. Calith was telling the truth. The Harbingers are real. Reeves and his circle have been hiding that threat for 3 years, waiting, hoping it would weaken the other factions first. Elias stared at her. That's madness. Dyvanna's the only civilization strong enough to fight them. Without them, we die. Naira finished, and Reeves knows it, but he's willing to sacrifice billions to ensure humanity rises from the ashes. Elias's jaw clenched. Then we need to get to Dyvanna now. Exactly. She handed him a fresh uniform from a nearby locker. There's a scout ship in Bay 4, one of Reeves' pet projects. It's got jump capability. They'll shoot us down the second we breach perimeter. Not if you have this. She held up the Dyvara crystal, glowing faintly in her palm. I took it back from Reeves. He planned to weaponize it. Elias reached for the crystal as if reuniting with an old friend. The moment it touched his skin, warmth spread through his chest, grounding him. We've got a 20-minute gap in patrol rotations, Naira said, checking her watch. It's now or never. They moved fast, ducking checkpoints with Naira's clearance codes and avoiding the main corridors. At Bay 4, a lone technician looked up. Emergency recon mission, Naira said smoothly. Alpha 6-9 protocol. Logged, the tech replied. Ship 4 is ready. Once aboard, Elias strapped in and fired up the systems. Alpha 6-9. It's real, Naira smirked. I didn't make it up. I told you I know Dyvanna. The ship detached smoothly. They drifted for several minutes before Elias punched the engines. Frontier 17 shrank behind them. Jump in, 5, Elias said. Hold on. The ship lurched as the drive tore through space. When they emerged, Dyvanna filled the viewport like an emerald jewel bathed in the light of its 3 suns. That's beautiful, Naira whispered. Yeah, Elias agreed. But look, orbiting Dyvanna was a fleet. Not dozens, but hundreds of warships, massive, lethal, ready. A beam of golden light scanned their vessel. "We've been detected." Another flash of light engulfed them. "Royal Crystal recognized escort en route," said a mechanical voice. 3 ships flanked them in moments, guiding them through the formation. The flagship, shaped like an enormous blossoming flower, loomed ahead. As they entered the docking bay, Elias whispered, "Let's hope she still wants to see me." The hangar was silent as their ship landed. Hundreds of Dyvannian soldiers stood at attention, forming a path. "I don't think this is a welcome party," Naira muttered. They stepped out into the silence, walking the narrow corridor of judgment. At the end stood a massive chamber filled with battle maps and warriors in ornate armor, the Council of War. "Captain Elias Ward," said a towering Dyvannian voice like steel. "Why have you come?" "I've come to speak with Queen Kalieth," murmurs erupted. "She refuses," the warrior said coldly. "You betrayed her. I nearly died saving her." Elias replied, his voice sharp. "I've returned to keep my promise." "Why should we believe you?" "Because we have proof," Naira said, holding up the data core. They watched in silence as it revealed the conspiracy, Reeves' terra primacy, and the truth about the Harbingers. The room shifted, not convinced but shaken. "Let me speak to her," Elias said. "One message. She is listening now." The council said. Elias faced the chamber. "Kalieth, I'm not here for politics. I'm here for you. I made a promise. I kept your crystal. I carried your hope. I thought I could forget, but I couldn't, because it wasn't just a promise, it was destiny." The back door opened. Kalieth stepped in simple robes, her hair coiled in grief. "You think you understand destiny?" she asked. "You don't. I know it means choosing, and I choose you, not because I must, because I want to." They faced each other. The room held its breath. "Our laws require proof," the council said. "A nexus bond." Kalieth froze. "He may not survive." Elias met her gaze. "Then that's the risk I take." "No," Naira cried, "you'll lose yourself. If she trusted me enough not to ask, how can I do less?" Kalieth stepped forward. "You're sure?" "I've never been more." Hours later, they stood in the Temple of Blades. 2 crystals, 1 bond. Hands touched. Light exploded. Memories flooded. Lives intertwined. Pain, joy, loss, love. When it was over, Elias fell. Kalieth caught him. He looked up, trembling. "You saw it all, and so did you." The council stared. He survived the crystals. They had fused 1 gem, 2 souls. For the first time, the council declared, a human has completed the Dyvanna nexus. Kalieth turned to Elias, glowing. "You are not just mine now. You are of Dyvanna forever." "What happens now?" he whispered. "Now we build a future together." He nodded. Together they faced the stars. The promise was kept. The future had begun, and Elias of the Third Light was no longer just a soldier. He was home. 6 months after the Dyvanna Nexus ceremony, a new era had begun, not just for Elias and Kalieth, but for the entire galaxy. The third son of Dyvanna was just rising, casting a pale blue glow through the massive crystal windows of the Unity Palace. Inside their private quarters, Elias rested his hand gently on Kalieth's belly, where new life was growing, the first child born of both Earth and Dyvannian blood. "How are you feeling?" he asked, tracing small circles on her smooth, silver-toned skin. Strong, Kalieth smiled, her energy hair spinning joyful patterns around her face. "As if I'm carrying more than just a child, like I'm carrying an entirely new future." Elias nodded, understanding her better than anyone could. Through the Dyvanna bond, he could feel part of her, her joy, her quiet nerves, and a hope so unshakable it radiated like light. "This child will be a true bridge," he said, brushing back a strand of her hair. "The best of both our worlds, and arriving at just the right time." Kalieth replied, her voice turning solemn. "The galaxy needs all the unity it can get." They didn't need to say it out loud, but they both knew the Void Harbingers were drawing closer. In the past 6 months, more signs had been detected along the outer sentry lines. Time was running out. But in that same stretch of time, they'd accomplished what once seemed impossible, forging a new alliance. After the arrest of Reeves and the exposure of terra primacy, the fragile power structure of the Galactic Alliance collapsed. From its ashes, a new order rose. No longer a loose collection of political convenience, it became a true pact, the Nova Concordat with Dyvanna and Earth at its core. And at the heart of it all stood Elias and Kalieth, living symbols of unity between two civilizations. Have you heard from Naira? Caliph asked, sitting up to adjust the flowing aquamarine robe wrapped around her growing belly. Yes, Elias nodded. She just landed on Helix 4. The embassy's opening is going smoothly. She's an extraordinary woman, Caliph said without the slightest hint of jealousy. A benefit of the Dyvanna bond was that it left no room for petty misunderstandings. She's sacrificed more than most. We all have, Elias said, gazing out the window at a fleet of sleek hybrid warships blending Dyvannian tech with Earth designs soaring across the sky, but it was sacrifice worth making. He stood and walked over to his sleek blackwood desk, an artifact from Earth, one of the few remnants of his old life. On it sat a bound leather journal, an ancient object in a digital age, but Elias had always loved the feel of pen on paper. What will you write today? Caliph asked with a knowing smile. About promises, Elias said as he opened the journal. How the smallest ones can reshape worlds. Caliph stepped behind him, resting her hand gently on his shoulder. When you said those words to me, back in the ruins, all those years ago, did you ever think they'd lead to this? Not once. Elias shook his head as he began to write. They were just the words of a soldier trying to comfort a terrified child. I never imagined you'd remember them, let alone build an entire life around them. And I never thought you'd actually return, Caliph admitted softly. But I prepared like you would. Elias turned to look at her, his eyes full of love and admiration. That's what makes you a great queen. Caliph's faith in the impossible. That faith saved Dyvanna. It saved Earth, and it will save this galaxy. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. Not just faith, Elias. Faith followed by action. As she left to prepare for the Unity Council meeting, Elias continued to write. His pen flowed across the page, capturing not just facts, but truths. Truths that one day their child would read to understand the journey that brought their parents together. That promise, once thought meaningless, he wrote, ended up saving a galaxy. Not because it was fate, but because two people from two different worlds chose to make it real. Despite the odds, despite the danger, despite the doubt. He paused, looking out at the triple suns of Dyvanna blending together, an impossible sight that now felt like home. And now, as we face the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known, we no longer stand alone. Dyvanna and Earth are no longer separate. They are united. This is a new beginning. He closed the journal and stood straightening his uniform for the upcoming council session. The work of the bridge between worlds was never finished, especially now with the galactic war looming on the horizon. But for the first time in history, the galaxy would face it as one. And this was only the beginning. As Elias stepped out of the room, he smiled, remembering his father's old words back on Earth. It's always the small things that make the biggest difference. One simple promise, one small act of kindness, one brave decision. Sometimes a single promise can change the destiny of entire worlds. And that's how a simple promise changed the fate of an entire galaxy. The story of Elias and Caliph isn't just about love that crossed the stars. It's a reminder that even the smallest choices we make can leave a ripple across the universe. If you enjoyed this HFY story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another emotionally charged sci-fi tale. Tell us what you think in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Elias's sacrifice? And make sure to share this video with your fellow sci-fi fans. Next week, we dive into a brand new story, the last Earth soldier standing in the heart of an alien empire. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned.